your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition.
Hello, I'm Naveen Day. Thanks for joining us this Saturday, August the 30th. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is warning Canadians to beware of carbon tax 2.0. Speaking in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, Poilievre says Prime Minister Mark Carney got rid of the carbon tax when he needed the votes, and now that he doesn't need voters, he's bringing in a new one because, in Poilievre's words, he still wants your money.
He calls it the Clean Fuel Standard, Clean Fuel Regulations. According to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, it will add 17 cents a litre to your gas. What did the last carbon tax add to your gas? 17 cents a litre. The new tax is starting to look a lot like the old tax. And Mark Carney thinks no one will notice. Well, Conservatives have noticed, and that is why we are announcing today that we are making it a priority to boost take-home pay and reverse the Liberal cost of living crisis by opposing Mark Carney's Carbon Tax 2.0. We want to axe all carbon taxes for good, for real, for everyone, forever.
The Parliamentary Budget Office also found the clean fuel regulations to be broadly regressive, with a greater financial impact on lower-income households, and projected a decrease in real GDP by up to 0.3% in 2030. Prime Minister Mark Carney continues to make deals overseas, deals that would align Canada more closely with European nations. So far, Carney has agreed to work more closely with Poland in areas such as defense, cybersecurity, and clean energy as they struck a new strategic partnership. He met with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and signed a critical minerals partnership that encourages the joint public financing of natural resources projects. Carney says key Canadian minerals such as nickel and cobalt have gone underdeveloped for far too long, while China and Russia dominate the global critical minerals market. And according to political commentator Brian Lilley, this is long overdue, especially since former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in the past there was no business case for Canada selling liquefied natural gas to Germany. Lilley tells Jeanette Rocher the Liberal Party has now changed its tune simply because of the U.S. president.
You could put it down to two words, Donald Trump, and he has changed everything. And so Canada is now looking and saying, what can we do? Well, of course, our biggest, benefit are all of our natural resources straight across the country. Every part of the country has some form of natural resource that we are really good at exploiting and exporting. Well, Justin Trudeau said there was no business case for selling LNG to Germany when the German chancellor came here and asked for it. So, look, I'm not going to be too hopeful. As with a lot of things with Mark Carney, it's wait and see. So they're going to launch talks to begin discussions about exporting liquefied natural gas, and he's talking about it in the medium term. So this could be a while. I think he should have been talking about this with Poland. Poland imports more than 17 billion cubic meters of natural gas every year. They need suppliers. We've got the product. You should be talking about this with Latvia as well, with Ukraine. All of these countries wanted our products. The U.S. has been going in under Trump and getting deals to buy it already. So hopefully we speed up the talks, because he said we've got to build things fast. Let's get things going and make sure that we are the supplier of choice.
Yeah. Okay. So, Brian, you mentioned there Poland and Latvia and Ukraine, which actually were also stops on Carney's tour of Europe. So there's been a lot of photo ops. There's been a lot of announcement. But has there been anything concrete happening?
It's been a lot of sizzle. And if you're looking for the steak, keep looking. So even when he went to Ukraine and he announced $2 billion for drones and other technology, that was something that he'd already announced in Kananaskis at the G7. So, he's trying to make sure he's got FaceTime. We have to remember that Mark Carney was excluded from the big meeting just over a week ago in Washington, D.C. All these partners that came together to try and help Ukraine with the peace deal, well, it was the head of NATO. It was the head of the EU. It was the heads of government for Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Finland, not Canada. We were excluded because we're not seen as a reliable ally and partner. Carney is trying to reverse that. It's got a lot of work to do, though. 10 years of Justin Trudeau being all sizzle and no steak. We have a bad reputation on the international stage now. Don't let people tell you otherwise. It's true. We're isolated or ignored in a lot of capitals, and Carney needs to try and undo that damage. I believe this was part of what he was doing.
The Quebec government says it is planning to ban prayer in public places as part of a move to strengthen secularism in the province. The announcement makes good on a suggestion put forward in December by Premier François Legault, who said he didn't want to see people praying in public parks or on streets. On Thursday, Secularism Minister Jean-François Roberge confirms that he will table legislation this fall to outlaw the practice. Roberge did not say whether the government would invoke the notwithstanding clause, which would allow the bill to override certain sections of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Last year, the Premier said he was considering that possibility. The move comes amid simmering tension in Quebec over Muslim prayers taking place as part of pro-Palestinian demonstrations, including in front of the Notre Dame Basilica of Montreal. The Alberta government released its first quarter fiscal update on Thursday, and it's a mix of good and bad news. The bad news is revenue projections are down and the deficit is going up. The first quarter update projects the 2025 to 26 deficit will reach $6.5 billion, up $1.3 billion from Budget 2025's forecasts. Finance Minister Nate Horner says the budget was projected on an oil price of $68 per barrel, but going forward, the revised oil price projection will be $63.75 per barrel.
Revenue for 2025-2026 is forecast at $73 billion. Down $1.2 billion from the budget. Expense for 2025-2026 is forecast at $79.4 billion, up $100 million from budget. This means Alberta's deficit is now $6.5 billion, a $1.3 billion increase from what was first projected. It's much talked about the royalty roller coaster that Alberta's been on. That's very true, but the way it affects actual Albertans is when governments ratchet up spending in surplus years to try to catch up and then drastically cut in deficit years. What our commitment has been is that we'll use the surpluses appropriately to improve our net fiscal position, either through debt repayment or savings in the Heritage Fund. And by managing the surpluses appropriately, we can weather some of these deficit cycles.
Alberta's operating expense is forecast at $65 billion, $675 million more than budgeted, primarily due to public sector wage growth. The group representing Alberta's teachers has broken off mediated contract talks with the province. The Alberta Teachers Association had voted in favor of strike action with the province, but were invited back to the bargaining table. Education Minister Dimitrios Nicolaides says the province made an offer to the ATA that included hiring 1,000 more teachers every year for the next 3 years at an estimated cost of $750 million over the term. An offer he says provides the exact request the union made in June of 2025. Additionally, the offer includes a 12% salary bump for teachers. Nicolaides says the ATA is playing politics at the expense of children's education.
We were informed that the Alberta Teachers Association bargaining team would make a counterproposal to us on August 27th. However, no such counterproposal was received. Rather, on August 27th, the bargaining team made it clear that the main interest was increasing wages for teachers and opposing the government. The ATA's focus on wages and not classroom complexity is not what they have been saying in public. For months, they have been talking openly about the need to increase funding, hire more teachers, improve working conditions, and provide more supports for teachers. However, we have now learned that wages are their main concern. The government of Alberta will prioritize children's learning, and we are now exposing the union strategy and tactics. We cannot sit idly by while the public, parents, students, and others are manipulated into supporting a union that has shown its primary interest is, in fact, diverting supports away from the classroom.
ATA head Jason Schilling said on Tuesday educators have had enough and the government needs to make a deal addressing all sticking points from wages to classroom resources. Premier Danielle Smith has said Alberta's current funding levels should be enough to address teachers' frustrations, but Schilling doesn't agree.
No, because we are the least funded in terms of what school boards have to spend on students and have been for years. We are well below the national average. I know the Premier quoted a number yesterday and on Saturday on her radio show, but the reality is it's much less than that. And it's just not enough to cover the growth of enrollment that we've seen, the lack of hiring of teachers over the course of that student enrollment growth. And it's not kept pace. And I think parents and the public can see that in public schools across the province.
If negotiations continue to fail and teachers go on strike, the Alberta Parents Union is hoping there can still be a way for kids to have school in some kind of form. Currently, a strike-proof Alberta students petition campaign has been launched. Jeff Park, Executive Director of the Alberta Parents Union, explains more.
The strike-proof Alberta students is very simply that if your school is closed due to a teacher strike, you can take the money that the province would be spending on your child to a school that's open. So charter schools, independent schools are not ATA. Well, there's one independent school that's unionized. The rest are non-ATA education institutions, but tutors and online education and maybe a apprenticeship or something like that, something to make sure that children don't fall behind, that it's in the parents' hands to help children not fall behind in the event of a strike.
You can catch the full interview with Jeff Park of the Alberta Parents Union by clicking over to our YouTube channel. After the break, there's more to come, including stories from Southern Alberta. Welcome back. We kick off this segment with a local connection to the country of Ukraine. Last weekend, Ukraine celebrated the nation's Independence Day, including those who escaped to Canada since the start of the Russia invasion. Events were held in Taber and in Lethbridge to commemorate Ukrainian heritage. One of the first Ukrainian evacuees who made her way to Lethbridge, Medina Kononenko, says there is still a spirit of hope for the future and is grateful to Canada, where Ukrainians have been able to find work and continue to support each other.
We're really happy to be here. We love Lethbridge, beautiful city, beautiful people, everybody's so friendly, and we already have Canadians as friends, right? So I think we're gonna grow more and more in the community, do more stuff for Ukrainian and Canadian community, and support each other. We just want people to see that we are independent, we are strong, and we believe that this war is gonna end up soon as possible. We want other people remember that Ukrainians still fighting, still needs the help, war is still going. People who decided and would like to be here, we are working, we're buying houses, we're supporting the economy as much as we can, but we just really struggle with the programs and getting the permanent residence. We're on the work permits, which allows us to work several years, like 3-4 years. But then most of the people would like to stay in Canada. It takes a lot of time to get this permanent residence. For me, I'm waiting 2.5 years already to get it done. Ukraine will be always with us in hearts, and we are Ukrainians. We were born there, right? So, but we're, doing everything possible to keep the traditions alive.
Prime Minister Mark Carney visited Kyiv last weekend to mark Ukraine's 34th Independence Day. Carney further emphasized Canada's support and commitment to Ukraine's security, including the $2 billion package he announced at the G7 summit in June. The Lethbridge and District Exhibition says the 2025 edition of Whoop Up Days was a massive success. Over 54,000 people attended the event, setting a new modern paid attendance record, a 36% increase over the previous record set in 2024. LDE Acting CEO Kim Gallucci says they're thrilled to see the continued growth of Lethbridge's biggest event.
We're really thrilled to see the patrons come out from not just Lethbridge, but the entire region. And to see the increase year over year, especially since we had to introduce back into some of the paid, we believe our free till 3 in the earlier part of the week helps create opportunities for families. But our attendance now in the 3rd year in a row has grown, which has just been fantastic.
And beyond that, we just know anecdotally from the feedback that we've received that it was a great week, that people really enjoyed themselves. The weather was pristine. There's a few things where we saw the interest grow. Number one is the Lethbridge District Pro Rodeo, which is now in its 4th year. That attendance went up 47% over last year. Beyond that, we saw big growth in our stage performers, our headliners presented by Westco Construction, our stage entertainment. The Trooper concert on Friday night is, I think, one that the city will be talking about for a long time. Stage area was packed. It was super exciting to see that. Chad Brownlee on Saturday night brought in another huge crowd. So we had our Whoop Up Wrap Up on Sunday, and so we had just over 1,000 people, which is probably a little under what we would have expected for a day like that. But it goes back to that taking risks and pushing forward and trying new things, and we're happy to do that, and we want to try doing that. So it was a good chance to kind of see how the community would react to a 6th day of Whoop Up Days and to the Sunday.
I heard that Trooper concert from my home. Sounds like people had a lot of fun there. The Lethbridge and District Pro Rodeo also set the pace as one of Lethbridge's fastest growing events, with a new record of 9,075 people taking in the 3 days of pro rodeo and relay racing action, a 47% increase from last year's record. The Chinook Child and Youth Advocacy Centre in Lethbridge will receive nearly $61,000 as part of the Government of Alberta's increased support for centres across the province. The government is boosting funding by 10%, meaning 8 centres will receive a total of $3.7 million in 2025. Cyril Turton, Alberta's Minister of Children and Family Services, says these centres are doing important work.
On July 1st, over $300,000 in additional funding was distributed to help address the ongoing sector pressures that are being experienced right across the province, such as rising caseloads. This brings the total investment in 2025 to child advocacy centres and child and youth advocacy centres to $3.7 million right across the province. It was so important for us to help strengthen child advocacy centres that are located in our other mid-sized cities, such as Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, because we want to make sure that those families that are going through some of the most darkest days of their entire lives, they don't have to drive hours and hours to be able to get to an advocacy center.
It's incredibly hopeful to receive this additional support from our provincial government. Prior to this increase of $60,000, we relied really heavily on donations. We receive an additional $60,000 to help offset our operational costs. So really that additional $60,000 gives us a little bit of buffer room. It's going to help us pay for the rent for our facility. We have been open as a child advocacy center for 3 years, and we've seen a steady increase year after year. And part of that is just really establishing those processes with our partners and what that referral pathway looks like. And it's people becoming aware of the service and how to access it as well. So last year alone, we received an increase of 100 referrals from the year prior. And within our 3 years of operating, we have supported over 660 referrals.
The 8 child and youth advocacy centres are in Fort McMurray, Grand Prairie, Edmonton, Lloydminster, Red Deer, Calgary, Medicine Hat, and right here in Lethbridge. Sunday, the world recognizes International Overdose Awareness Day, a time to reflect on those lost to an overdose. Every year, thousands of families across Canada are impacted by a silent epidemic, addiction, and with it, the growing threat of overdose. Here in Lethbridge, the Wellness Shelter and Stabilization Unit is also at the heart of that fight. Our BCN's Heidi Echevarria has the story.
On average, for overdoses, we are seeing around anywhere from 1 to 12 a day. So it really depends on what is in the drug supply that's currently being utilized, and then how the staff are doing. So our staff respond very quickly to all overdoses within the perimeter of the shelter. So calling 911, relying on our emergency services and the police to actually really assist with any overdoses or any incidences that are occurring.
On International Overdose Awareness Day, Canada remembers the devastating loss of over 7,000 lives in 2024, enough to wipe out an entire town like Crowsnest Pass, Alberta, which has more than 6,000 residents. This day also recognizes that many people can still be saved.
So the prevention of future overdosing and starts within the shelter and then it goes out to the community. So that community awareness is where the power is when it comes to overdose prevention.
Behind the numbers, overdose follows a seasonal trend that is almost never mentioned.
Some holiday events that happen, sometimes the supply gets cheaper or people hand out samples of supply. The holidays are hard on people. Sure, a lot of them have lost their family ties, which means then coping is really strained. So you can see an increase of overdoses at the holiday time.
But those struggling with addiction are not alone. They are supported by a dedicated team that monitors their condition and steps in to help when an overdose occurs.
They show up every day to help the people to really figure out what they can do as a community member. They are outside, doesn't matter whether it's rain, shine, hot, cold, to doing perimeter checks. They stick fairly close to our property. We have case managers that actually are trying to figure out on a case-by-case basis what each person needs. Medical and identification, got to follow up with court. Food, coming in, having a shower. We try to get them interested in working if they do want a specific life skill. All of those connections, they may not be related directly to overdosing, but they certainly do have a piece of that puzzle to add so that we can prevent overdoses from happening and try to get that person on a recovery journey, yes, but also to a better situation in life so that they can make choices and get out of the crisis that they're in.
According to Stats Canada, just over 1 in 5 Canadians, or 21%, reported taking an illegal substance at some point in their life in 2023. It's not just the homeless who can overdose. It happened to anyone who uses drugs.
Thank you, Heidi. Hamburgers and hot dogs were cooking on the grill just outside of Coaldale Wednesday afternoon. The Coaldale Lethbridge Food Grains Growing Project began its 19th crop year. Following a row of combines that kicked off the harvest season, attendees were invited to gather for food and fun as the group raises funds for the Canadian Food Grains Bank through its harvesting efforts. The charity is rooted in its Christian belief that no person should go hungry.
There are about 750 million people right now in the world who are food insecure. We work in about 35 different countries. Some of them are much more dire than others. Congo, Sudan, Gaza are really, really difficult places. Yemen, Lebanon as well, Colombia, Venezuela. And so in all of those cases, there are just millions of people who don't have enough to eat on a regular basis. There are 32 events like this in Alberta this year, and they're all equally important. Some are larger, some are a little bit smaller, but each of them raises grain that is then turned into cash and vouchers that are then used by any of the 15 members of the Food Grains Bank. They're all Christian church bodies, organizations who work overseas. And they use that cash to either purchase and distribute food locally or to work with local farmers in production.
Have you ever flown in a hot air balloon? I've been told it's an amazing experience to silently and majestically float high in the sky. Up next, we speak with a local pastor who spent decades flying balloons and even became the first pilot to fly over the North Pole. If you're watching us online, that full interview is available on our YouTube channel.